Good morning. Thank you for joining me today. Well, let's get right to it. Exodus chapter 21, verse 22, through chapter 23, verse 13. If men fight and hit a pregnant woman and her child is born prematurely, but there is no serious injury, he will surely be punished in accordance with what the woman's husband demands of him, and he will pay what the court decides. But if there is serious injury, then you will give a life for a life, eye for eye, tooth for tooth, hand for hand, foot for foot, burn for burn, wound for wound, bruise for bruise. If a man strikes the eye of his male servant or his female servant so that he destroys it, he will let the servant go for his compensation for the eye. If he knocks out the tooth of his male servant or his female servant, he will let the servant go free as compensation for the tooth. If an ox gores a man or a woman so that either dies, then the ox must surely be stoned, and its flesh must not be eaten, but the owner of the ox will be acquitted. But if the ox had the habit of goring, and its owner was warned and he did not take the necessary precautions, and then it killed a man or a woman, the ox must be stoned, and the man must be put to death. If a ransom is set for him, then he must pay the redemption for his life according to whatever amount was set for him. If the ox gores a son or a daughter, the owner will be dealt with according to this rule. If the ox gores a male servant or a female servant, the owner must pay 30 shekels of silver, and the ox must be stoned. If a man opens a pit, or if a man digs a pit and does not cover it, and an ox or a donkey falls into it, the owner of the pit must repay the loss. He must give money to its owner, and the dead animal will become his. If the ox of one man injures the ox of his neighbor, so that it dies, then they will sell the live ox and divide its proceeds, and they will also divide the dead ox. Or if it is known that the ox had the habit of goring, and its owner did not take the necessary precautions, he must surely pay ox for ox, and the dead animal will become his. If a man steals an ox or a sheep and kills it or sells it, he must pay back 5 head of cattle for the ox and 4 sheep for the one sheep. If a thief is caught breaking in and is struck so that he dies, there will be no blood guilt for him. If the sun has risen on him, then there is blood guilt for him. A thief must surely make full restitution. If he has nothing, then he will be sold for his theft. If the stolen item should in fact be found alive in his possession, whether it be an ox or a donkey or a sheep, he must pay back double. If a man grazes his livestock in a field or a vineyard, and he lets the livestock loose, and they graze in the field of another man, he must make restitution from the best of his own field and the best of his own vineyard. If a fire breaks out and spreads to thorn bushes, so that stacked grain or standing grain or the whole field is consumed, the one who started the fire must surely make restitution. If a man gives his neighbor money or articles for safekeeping, and it is stolen from the man's house, if the thief is caught, he must repay double. If the thief is not caught, then the owner of the house will be brought before the judges to see whether he has laid his hand on his neighbor's goods. In all cases of illegal possessions, whether for an ox, a donkey, a sheep, a garment, or any kind of lost item about which someone says, "This belongs to me," the matter of the two of them will come before the judges, and the one whom the judges declare guilty must repay double to his neighbor. If a man gives his neighbor a donkey or an ox or a sheep or any beast to keep, and it dies, or is hurt, or is carried away without anyone seeing it, then there will be an oath to the Lord between the two of them, that he has not laid his hand on his neighbor's goods. And its owner will accept this, and he will not have to pay. But if it was stolen from him, he will pay its owner. If it is torn to pieces, then he will bring it for evidence, and he will not have to pay for what was torn. If a man borrows an animal from his neighbor, and it is hurt or dies when its owner was not with it, the man who borrowed it will surely pay. If its owner was with it, he will not have to pay. If it was hired, what was paid for the hire covers it. If a man seduces a virgin who is not engaged, and has sexual relations with her, he must surely endow her to be his wife. If her father refuses to give her to him, he must pay money for the bride price of virgins. You must not allow a sorceress to live. Whoever has sexual relations with a beast must surely be put to death. Whoever sacrifices to a god other than the Lord alone must be utterly destroyed. You must not wrong a foreigner, nor oppress him, for you were foreigners in the land of Egypt. You must not afflict any widow or orphan. If you afflict them in any way, and they cry to me, I will surely hear their cry, and my anger will burn, and I will kill you with the sword, and your wives will be widows, and your children will be fatherless. If you lend money to any of my people who are needy among you, do not be like a moneylender to him. Do not charge him interest. If you do take the garment of your neighbor in pledge, you must return it to him by the time the sun goes down, for it is his only covering. It is his garment for his body. What else can he sleep in? And when he cries out to me, I will hear, for I am gracious. You must not blaspheme God or curse the ruler of your people. Do not hold back offerings from your granaries or your vats. You must give me the firstborn of your sons. You must also do this for your oxen and for your sheep. 7 days they may remain with their mothers, but give them to me on the 8th day. You will be holy people to me. You must not eat any meat torn by animals in the field. You must throw it to the dogs. You must not give a false report. Do not make common cause with the wicked to be a malicious witness. You must not follow a crowd in doing evil things. In a lawsuit, you must not offer testimony that agrees with a crowd, so as to pervert justice. And you must not show partiality to a poor man in his lawsuit. If you encounter your enemy's ox or donkey wandering off, you must by all means return it to him. If you see the donkey of someone who hates you fallen under its load, you must not ignore him, but be sure to help him with it. You must not turn away justice for your poor people in their lawsuits. Keep your distance from a false charge. Do not kill the innocent and the righteous, for I will not justify the wicked. You must not accept a bribe, for a bribe blinds those who see and subverts the words of the righteous. You must not oppress a foreigner, since you know the life of a foreigner, for you were foreigners in the land of Egypt. For 6 years you are to sow your land and gather in its produce, but in the 7th year you must let it lie fallow and leave it alone, so that the poor of your people may eat, and what they leave any animal in the field may eat. You must do likewise with your vineyard and your olive grove. For 6 days you are to do your work, but on the 7th day you must cease, in order that your ox and your donkey may rest, and that your female servant's son and any hired help may refresh themselves. Pay attention to do everything I have told you, and do not even mention the name of other gods. Do not let them be heard on your lips. Was thinking about this last night a bit, and this morning. Just on the topic of not taking these laws in Exodus as rules for all time, because I believe as Christians that we're governed by the law of liberty, and that the law of love is more at once restrictive and also freeing for us, in that many things fall under the law of love. When you love your neighbor, you're not going to do horrible things to him. I guess I would just say that God's working with Israel at this time, and giving them laws that are better than what they currently have and indicate the direction that the morality should go, but are by no means the final stopping point. And I guess I present as evidence when Jesus talks about this in Matthew 5:38. You have heard that it was said, an eye for an eye, and a tooth for a tooth. But I say to you, do not resist the evildoer, but whoever strikes you on the right cheek, Turn the other to him as well. And if someone wants to sue you and take your tunic, give him your coat also. And if anyone forces you to go 1 mile, go with him 2. Give to the one who asks you, and do not reject the one who wants to borrow from you. That the law that God gave to the Israelites in the Old Testament was never sufficient for bringing about the righteousness of God. Carrying on, Matthew chapter 24, verses 1 through 28. Now as Jesus was going out of the temple courts and walking away, his disciples came to show him the temple buildings. And he said to them, "Do you see all these things? I tell you the truth, not one stone will be left on another. All will be torn down." As he was sitting on the Mount of Olives, his disciples came to him privately and said, "Tell us, when will these things happen, and what will be the sign of your coming and of the end of the age?" Jesus answered them, "Watch out that no one misleads you. For many will come in my name, saying, 'I am the Christ,' and they will mislead many. You will hear of wars and rumors of wars. Make sure that you are not alarmed, for this must happen, but the end is still to come. For nation will rise up in arms against nation, and kingdom against kingdom. And there will be famines and earthquakes in various places. All these things are the beginning of birth pains. Then they will hand you over to be persecuted and will kill you. You will be hated by all the nations because of my name. Then many will be led into sin, and they will betray one another and hate one another. And many false prophets will appear and deceive many. And because lawlessness will increase so much, the love of many will grow cold. But the person who endures to the end will be saved. And this gospel of the kingdom will be preached throughout the whole inhabited earth as a testimony to all the nations, and then the end will come. So when you see the abomination of desolation spoken about by Daniel the prophet standing in the holy place, let the reader understand, then those in Judea must flee to the mountains. The one on the roof must not come down to take anything out of his house, and the one in the field must not turn back to get his cloak. Woe to those who are pregnant and to those who are nursing their babies in those days. Pray that your flight may not be in winter or on a Sabbath, for then there will be great suffering, unlike anything that has happened from the beginning of the world until now, or ever will happen. And if those days had not been cut short, no one would be saved. But for the sake of the elect, those days will be cut short. Then if anyone says to you, 'Look, here's the Christ,' or 'There he is,' do not believe him, for false messiahs and false prophets will appear, and perform great signs and wonders to deceive, if possible, even the elect. Remember, I have told you ahead of time. So then if someone says to you, 'Look, he is in the wilderness,' do not go out. Or, 'Look, he is in the inner rooms,' do not believe him. For just like the lightning comes from the east and flashes to the west, so the coming of the Son of Man will be. Wherever the corpse is, there the vultures will gather." Interesting. Prophecy of Jesus here in 24:1 and 2, that the disciples are remarking on the architecture of the day, and Jesus says it's all going to be torn down. And with the Romans ransacking Jerusalem in 70 AD, this prophecy turned out correct. Carrying on, Psalm 29, verses 1 through 11. Acknowledge the Lord, you heavenly beings. Acknowledge the Lord's majesty and power. Acknowledge the majesty of the Lord's reputation. Worship the Lord in holy attire. The Lord's shout is heard over the water. The majestic God thunders. The Lord appears over the surging water. The Lord's shout is powerful. The Lord's shout is majestic. The Lord's shout breaks the cedars. The Lord shatters the cedars of Lebanon. He makes Lebanon skip like a calf, and Syrian like a young ox. The Lord's shout strikes with flaming fire. The Lord's shout shakes the wilderness. The Lord shakes the wilderness of Kadesh. The Lord's shout bends the large trees and strips the leaves from the forests. Everyone in his temple says, "Majestic." The Lord sits enthroned over the engulfing waters. The Lord sits enthroned as the eternal King. The Lord gives his people strength. The Lord grants his people security. Carrying on. Proverbs chapter 7, verses 6 through 23. For at the window of my house, through my window lattice, I looked out, and I saw among the naive, I discerned among the youths, a young man who lacked wisdom. He was passing by the street near her corner, making his way along the road to her house. In the twilight, the evening, in the dark of the night, suddenly a woman came out to meet him. She was dressed like a prostitute and with secret intent. She is loud and rebellious. She does not remain at home. At one time, outside, at another in the wide plazas, and by every corner she lies in wait. So she grabbed him and kissed him, and with a bold expression she said to him, I have fresh meat at home. Today I have fulfilled my vows. That is why I came out to meet you, to look for you, and I found you. I have spread my bed with elegant coverings, with richly colored fabric from Egypt. I have perfumed my bed with myrrh, aloes, and cinnamon. Come, let's drink deeply of love-making until morning. Let's delight ourselves with sexual intercourse. For my husband is not at home. He has gone on a journey of some distance. He has taken a bag of money with him. He will not return until the end of the month. She persuaded him with persuasive words. With her smooth talk she compelled him. Suddenly he went after her, like an ox that goes to the slaughter, like a stag prancing into a trapper's snare, till an arrow pierces his liver, like a bird hurrying into a trap, and he does not know that it will cost him his life. Yep. Adultery is a trap. Okay, well, thank you for joining me today. Appreciate it. Bye.